By the year 2200, humanity has perfected space travel, allowing people to live in orbital homes. Mami, a skilled and passionate potter, spends her time crafting in her studio aboard one of these floating residences. When her husband, Naoki, suggests she take a break, she washes up and joins him for dinner. Later, she accepts a delivery from a cargo shuttle with assistance from their household robot, Q. Suddenly, a sharp ringing fills her ears, and a disturbing vision flashes before her, red streaks and herself lying in a pool of blood. Snapped back to reality by Naoki's voice, she is reminded of their upcoming doctor's appointment. She reassures him that she's fine, but once he turns away, a troubled expression crosses her face. They enter a room equipped with metaverse chairs, technology that allows users to travel virtually to different places. Mami confesses she often struggles to separate reality from simulation. When the device activates, she finds herself in a clinic, where Naoki and the doctor are already waiting. She explains her recurring headaches and ear ringing, and the doctor attributes it to post-traumatic stress. After surviving a coma caused by a head injury during a tsunami, she lost her memory, yet she has no recollection of the disaster at all. Meanwhile, Naoki, known as the inventor of orbital homes, gives an interview. Many of Earth's wealthiest citizens have relocated to space, hoping that one day when the planet recovers, they will return. In their home's greenhouse, Mami admires the tomato harvest, their perfection enhanced by Key's help. She later prepares Naoki's favorite soup, a sign that her body still remembers old habits. Naoki is thrilled, yet nearly given up hope that she would cook again. Deciding to keep a record of her life, Mami jots down notes, hoping they will help her recover her past, especially memories of when she and Naoki first met, married, and lived by the ocean. Her decision unsettles Naoki, who insists it's too soon to return to Earth, echoing the doctor's advice to focus on the future rather than the past. Ignoring the warning, Mami recalls a rainy day when a young man arrived at her home drenched and carrying a backpack that contained Q. She had been working on her pottery but stepped away at offering shelter. Seeing her work, he was captivated and wanted to buy a vase. She dismissed it as flawed and gave it to him instead. Back in the present, as they prepare for bed, Naoki suddenly pushes her away without explanation. Confused, Mami senses something is wrong. Then he claims to know her better than she knows herself because she isn't Mami. He raises a knife. She jolts awake, shaken. The next day, she confides in the doctor about the terrifyingly vivid nightmare, fearing sleep itself. The doctor dismisses it as a symptom of PTSD, reminding her that it was Naoki who never left her side when she was in a coma. Even when the doctor doubted her recovery, Naoki remained hopeful. Later, while showering, Mami sees disturbing red streaks on the glass and a sharp pain radiates through her neck. Trying to shake it off, she resumes work in her studio. As she picks up a bowl, a lost memory resurfaces, a struggle, a man breaking into her home demanding pottery. When she refused, he attacked her. Naoki had intervened, unleashing brutal force until the man was unconscious. She had thanked him but begged him never to resort to violence again. Naoki had promised that Q would protect her instead. While tending to his wounds, she had discovered old burn scars on his back, a result of his father's cigar habit. Feeling sympathy, she kissed him for the first time. In the present, Naoki reviews Mami's psychological profile when he hears music playing. He finds her asleep on the couch, a vinyl record spinning. She stirs and tells him she remembers the melody in full. Naoki then suggests they view the real moon. As they gaze at it, glowing red from an eclipse, Mami dreams of walking on its surface. But her wish unsettles Naoki. Without warning, he leads her to the airlock and seals her inside. At first, she laughs, thinking it's a joke, until she sees him preparing to open the outer door. Panic sets in. Using all of her strength, she forces the doors apart and stumbles back inside, only for Naoki to raise a knife and drive it into her neck. Instead of blood, white fluid seeps out. He pulls a chip from the base of her skull, leaving the lifeless android body on the floor. Later, he orders Q to dispose of the remains. Sitting alone, he weeps, recalling the night he found Mami's real body, lifeless on the shore. The next day, he meets with the doctor, explaining that he had to scrap the android because it was faulty. The memory backup must have been corrupted, but the doctor disagrees. He installed the memories exactly as requested. And yet, Naoki realizes there was no way she should have remembered that melody. He takes a breath. Then he asks the doctor to create another version, an earlier one. As the doctor hesitates, Naoki reminds him that many specialists are capable of memory transfers. If he refuses, Naoki will simply take his business elsewhere. The doctor explains that the most recent backup of Mayumi's consciousness was taken after their honeymoon. But Naoki insists on an even earlier version, one that won't remember the existence of the other woman. If she questions the fabricated story about the tsunami, he'll tell her the truth eventually, that she's an android. Soon, a newly restored Mayumi arrives at the orbital home. Disoriented, she wakes up with no recollection of where she is. Naoki gently tells her that they had gone out to create memory backups, but an accident occurred. She died. Mumi rejects the claim, but hesitation creeps into her voice as she asks how much time has passed. When Naoki reveals that 5 years have gone by, she jumps out of bed, rushes to the window, and stares at the view outside. Then, as if something shifts within her, she relaxes and allows him to hold her. Naoki whispers his gratitude. He's thankful she has returned to him. The next day, Mumi works in the workshop when Naoki playfully tosses a cracker at her. Laughing, she throws one back, and they goof around like a couple in love. As the mood softens, she shows him their wedding photograph, confessing that it was the happiest day of her life. Naoki agrees, but he reminds her that every day they spent together was just as joyful. Mumi admits that she feels like she has cheated death, but she wonders, will it ever be enough for him that she is just a copy? Naoki, without hesitation, reassures her that this is the best possible outcome under the circumstances. He then suggests they take a trip together. In the blink of an eye, they are cruising down a scenic road, surrounded by towering trees, the sunlight filtering through the leaves. Birds sing in the distance. They stop at a small shrine along the way, where Mumi's attention is caught by a house nearby. As she approaches, the world around her seems to blur. She finds herself inside an old bar on Earth, where she meets a woman named Jab. Just as suddenly as it began, the vision shatters when Naoki calls out her name. They continue their journey, arriving at the beach house where they had spent their honeymoon. As Mumi steps inside, she recognizes familiar objects in the living room. They reminisce about a time when Hugh accidentally made a hole in one of the columns. The sound of raindrops interrupts their laughter. Mumi dashes outside, allowing the warm rain to cascade over her face. Naoki follows, but as he reaches her, something shifts. Mumi's memories flicker, and suddenly she recalls her encounters with Jab. A face materializes in her mind, and she calls out the woman's name. Naoki's expression darkens. Back at the orbital home, an unease settles over Mumi. She struggles to articulate what she is feeling, but Naoki leads her to the elevator instead. They ascend to the top of the tower, where the force of gravity weakens, leaving them floating weightlessly. The unfamiliar sensation overwhelms Mumi, momentarily erasing her thoughts. But when she adjusts to the environment, she looks at Naoki and tells him plainly she cannot stay here. He knew all along that she was in love with someone else. Naoki feigns ignorance, dismissing her words. It doesn't matter now, he says, but Mumi insists that it does. She loves Jab. She cannot be with him. With a calm expression, Naoki pulls her into an embrace. Then, in one swift motion, he snaps the android's neck. As he cradles her lifeless body, tears spill down his face. His mind replays an old memory, one rainy afternoon when Mayume had begged him not to hurt her. He wasn't a cruel man, yet she had shown him the bruises on her arm, proof of his grip. Blinded by rage, Naoki had shattered the furniture while Mayume thought only of Jab. The next day, he found them together in the living room, lost in music, his wife safe in another woman's arms. Later, she told him she was leaving, her decision final. She tried to wipe away his playful drawing on the glass partition. Now in the present, Naoki makes another desperate attempt to reclaim the past. He goes back to the doctor, demanding that Mayumi's memories be altered again, this time preserving only the day they first met, their wedding, their honeymoon. The 6 years that followed, erased. He wants one last chance to make her love him again. A new version of Mumi arrives at the house, but this time she reacts differently. When she sees Naoki, fear flashes in her eyes. She feels like she is woken up as a prisoner, held captive by a stranger. He reassures her, reminding her that she had once dreamed of travel into space. He tells her stories of their wedding, their happy life in the beach house. But this Mumi has no recollection of these things. Naoki had hoped she would recognize him on her own and fall in love with him again. He tells her that if she doesn't, he will not force her to stay. His words seem to calm her, only slightly. She agrees to give their life together a chance. As he bids her goodnight, Naoki reminds her that for 6 years, they had been truly happy. But that night, Mumi cannot sleep. Restless, she searches the room and finds a note tucked inside the vanity mirror. The message is stark and chilling. Naoki will kill you. At that moment, Naoki enters the room. He tells her he has business to attend to and will be away for a short time. When he returns, he promises to show her around the house. Once he's gone, Mumi wastes no time. She seeks out Q, the robot, and pleads for help escaping. Obediently, Q leads her to the elevator. Expecting freedom, she steps inside, only to be taken to the top of the tower. Confused, she demands to know why she was brought here. Who wrote the warning? A voice answers. She turns and finds herself staring into her own face. Another version of herself steps forward, admitting that she was the one who left the note. Muni reels in shock as even more duplicates of herself emerge from the shadows, their silent figures filling the space. They explain that Q had saved them, but Naoki had erased their identities. Still, fragments of their past linger. Though they are many, They are all the same person, and now Mumi must help them escape. Q reveals that it can summon a transport shuttle, and Mumi suggests that all of them flee together. But first there is something they must do: restore their memories. As the process begins, time rewinds. A memory resurfaces, an evening when Mayumi stood in their home packing a suitcase. Naoki had begged her not to leave, but she simply held out her arm, showing him the bruises. He had promised never to hurt her again, and each time she had believed him. But the cycle had continued. Maybe it was his own unresolved pain from childhood, but she could not endure it anymore. She had stepped outside. He had followed. Then she saw the knife. Fear gripped her as she climbed onto the parapet, trying to escape. Naoki had dropped the blade, but instead of stepping back, he reached out and shoved her. Mayumi had fallen from the height, and she had died. Now in the present, Naoki arrives for dinner. His wife has prepared his favorite soup, but as he looks at her, something unsettles him. How did she know? His eyes land on her neck, tick together. He realizes too late that this is an older version of Mayumi. The android flees. Meanwhile, the latest Mumi continues restoring the memories of her duplicates. Naoki pursues the earlier version, cornering her inside the greenhouse. Mumi manages to deceive Naoki for a brief moment, but ultimately, he catches on and kills her. Determined to reach the tower, he steps into the elevator, only for Q, acting on Mumi's warning, to disable the lift, stranding him inside the shaft. With no other option, Naoki begins the grueling climb upward. Meanwhile, Mumi prepares for the final confrontation. She arms herself, setting a trap to lure Naoki into the airlock. Before she goes, she expresses her gratitude to Q, acknowledging that it is the last remnant of humanity left in her husband. At last, Naoki reaches the tower and lunges at Mumi. She sprints away, leading him toward the airlock, but he slips past the closing doors and seizes her. Before he can overpower her, Q intervenes, reminding him of his own past command, to protect Mumi. Fury consumes Naoki. He makes another move to attack, but he's not alone. The other androids emerge from the shadows surrounding him. As he struggles, Mumi takes her chance. She curls a knife, the blade sinking deep into Naoki's chest. He stumbles, blood spreading across his shirt, as the silent figures of Mayumi's past selves watch him with cold, knowing eyes. Mumi stares down at him. "We will never forgive you," she says. "You destroyed everything." As pain overtakes him, Naoki's mind drifts back to a distant memory, where they had once dreamed of building a home in space, sketching their hopes onto the glass partition. The vision shatters, reality crashes down. He sobs. But Mumi does not leave him there. She kneels beside him, helps him to his feet, and leads him to the shuttle. For a fleeting moment, it seems as if she will take him with her. But just as she boards, Naoki shoves her inside and slams the door shut. From the other side of the glass, Mumi pounds against it. Naoki offers a final silent farewell as he steps into the vast emptiness of space. Hugh follows him, the last witness to his fate. Back on Earth at the beach house, Jag welcomes Mumi with a warm cup of tea. Mumi sits, troubled. "It feels like I've lost a part of my memory," she confesses. Jag gives her a reassuring smile. It happens to everyone. The story closes on a haunting note, a breathtaking film underscored by a masterful soundtrack, unraveling the terrifying depths of a broken relationship where abuse festers into its most extreme form, leading to death. Even in the future, will humanity still be unable to break free from this curse?